Boy, I could sure use a mint. What the Greetings, Retro Zoltan here. For your viewing pleasure, I bring to you, well, Tetris in a tin. This was something that caught my eye on Amazon last year, and I ended up getting it as a gift for the holidays, knowing very little about it. It's a creation from Fizz Creations, which of course, with a name like that, I certainly had to look deeper into this company. So let's take a look at this thing, this company named Fizz, and whether I wish or not this was a tin of mints instead. So what's the skinny on Fizz Creations? And what are they all about? From my research, I found out that they aren't about handheld gaming as much as they're into official property licensing. They more than not get permission from my property and merchandise the hell out of it.
Merchandising! Where the real money from the movie is made.
That's right. Known names like Icy, Super Pretzel, and even NASA fans can buy a variety of lamps, mugs, pancake makers, and so on. Most of the items they sell feel a bit cheesy, but at times the items are certainly creative. Like they have a folding chess game that you can fold up mid-game and continue later. That's genius. And as far as electronic gaming, they had the clever idea of putting games in a tin, which I would argue Tetris and Pac-Man are good candidates. In the past, they've also released other handhelds which are similar to the Famiclones, with a mess of 8-bit homebrew games that you'd rather not play. Hits like Eating Worms and Shoot Fruit. You get the idea. They're now considered rare items according to Winter Snow on eBay anyway. Digging even further, I found out that gaming in a tin isn't really an original idea, but we'll talk about that at the end of the video. Your opinion on Fizz will probably change after I tell you what I found out, but let's continue. So with Tetris Arcade in a tin in hand, let's explore this and see if it's worth getting for yourself, yes? Right out the gate, my Tetris game was received in some mangled packaging. Can't really blame Fizz for this, but maybe Amazon might want to take it easy next time? I mean, this is supposed to be what I got, and this is what I received. Damn, Jeff Bezos, why do you hate me so much? I assumed incorrectly that opening the lid to Tetris Arcade in a tin would suddenly bring me to a magical world of Tetris, but the 3 AAA batteries weren't included. So not much going on so far. With a screwdriver and some batteries, I was back in business. Here goes nothing, and yeah, nothing. I don't know why I assume this, but you can picture this thing turning on just by opening the lid. But that's not the case. It never was. This is why there's an on-off switch inside, which to be fair looks basic, and I'm sure there'll be no problem here. Tetris Arcade in a tin comes with a rubber D-pad that feels soft, like too soft, as well as the buttons to spin the Tetris pieces left and right. It also has a small rubber reset button, sound button, and pause button. Nothing else to talk about other than the speaker front and center, and the ability, of course, to open and close the lid, which is satisfying as you expect when it snaps together like an old tin of Sucrets. Okay, maybe not that old. Okay, that's better. Anyway, when turning it on, the 2.4-inch screen gives you the option for 2 different game modes, Marathon and Sprint. Marathon essentially is regular Tetris, only the game is over after 150 lines, while Sprint will end at 25. Weird, right? It's not the usual Tetris you may be used to, since once you hit the limit, the game ends. And it's not a satisfying one either. It just sort of stops and says winner. The gameplay is pretty basic though. Pressing down speeds the piece fall, and pushing up drops it immediately like you expect. The next key on the top right is pretty helpful, showing you the next 3 pieces coming up. But other than that, the game lacks options it really needs. And speaking of options, there really isn't any other than turning up the volume on both the music and the sound at the same time, or off completely. The sound quality also feels a bit goofed up, especially after you place pieces. Things like speed, difficulty, anything that would give this more replayability just isn't on this, which is incredibly disappointing. The squishy rubbery D-pad is so mushy it feels like your finger is on a flat surface, but it's fairly responsive anyway, despite how weird it is. The buttons are about the same, responsive enough. It's enough texture to give you that game playing feel, but not close enough to what you're hoping for, if that makes any sense. I'm guessing using rubber and having it very low profile was probably to give the screen room and prevent it from being scratched. Just a guess. I would say the best thing this device has going for it is the screen that looks fairly good. I was kind of expecting something in less quality, but the colors look great, and it's clear enough for this sort of thing. This specific LCD they chose was a good one. In the end, though, this thing feels janky, and oftentimes when I turn it on, it doesn't do anything. So I have to try 2 or 3 more times to sort of wake it up. What's happening? Also a bit annoying is every time you turn this thing on and off again, you have to set the volume again. So if you hate the sound like I do, it's pretty annoying. The plastic pieces which help hinge the lid on the left side, I thought did nothing at first. But then I realized it's holding the lid at the perfect angle, so I can't complain here. The ribbon cable connecting the LCD screen to the bottom looks a bit sus, but so far it seems fine. Curious how these hold up for those really into these things. There's also the Pac-Man arcade in a tin, which is basically the same exact design, only 2 less buttons. I take it there are no special options here, and perhaps the level just keeps repeating itself. I watched a video of another reviewer, Elliot Cole, playing this, and it seemed to work a lot better than the Tetris one. I may have regrets on my choice. There's also a version of Arcade in a Tin out there that is the dreaded blocks game that most handheld enthusiasts know about. You know, those 999 games in one, which is really just 5 that all look the same. Like this one game that's supposed to be a driving game if you squint your eyes and have a big imagination. Yeah, that one. I'm tempted to do a video talking about these block games, but I'm not sure I can stay awake long enough for it. So what do I think of Arcade in the Tin, and more specifically, Tetris Arcade in a tin? It's certainly different, and if you're a collector, it might be worth snapping them up. But if you're really dying to play Tetris, I wouldn't recommend doing it on one of these. It's licensed, sure, and even sounds like the original game. But the stuff is certainly off, and it sounds like sometimes it's dragging its feet, to be quite honest. With Tetris at least, if you turn the sound off, it appears to play better, whatever that's about. I'll show you what I'm talking about here. Listen to the music and sounds. I think it's a real shame they didn't go through the effort of letting the games turn on itself when the tin was open. That would have been really neat. And with so many licenses on so many things, I feel they could have made even more classics in a tin. I think Space Invaders would work pretty well here, and Asteroids is just begging to be on this. But maybe I'm just being greedy here. I still have faith that Fizz will come out with better stuff in the future, as far as handheld stuff anyway. They have electronic game keychains also, which I think may be even better. But that's another review for another time. Maybe. Should I? And as promised, what did I find out about gaming in a tin after me nitpicking over this thing? The entire idea was brought about by Sudomod putting Raspberry Pi Zeros inside of Altoid tins in a project cleverly named Minty Pi. While his work was incredible in the version 1.0, version 2.0 took it to another level with 3D printed parts, which he generously shared with the modding community, and, well, let's just say it looks very familiar. While I'm positive that Fizz Arcade in a tin isn't using Raspberry Pi Zeros inside, they certainly took liberty in the design and the 3D prints. There are mixed feelings about this move by Fizz, of course, because this was most likely meant for modders to mess with, not companies to grab and use to make a buck. And that's all I have to say about Tetris Arcade in a Tin and the entire Arcade in a Tin series. Thank you so much for watching this video. Thank you so much for your support, and as always, I'll see you next time. Bye.